As much as Lisa and Christian's meeting bothered me, it gave me an idea that next day. Hey Kirova, yeah, Miss Kirova. I stood in the doorway of her office, not having bothered to make an appointment. She raised her eyes from some paperwork, clearly annoyed to see me. Yes, Miss Hathaway. Does my house arrest mean I cannot go to church? I beg your pardon. You said that whenever I am not in a class or practice, I have to stay in the dorm. But what about church on Sundays? I don't think it is really fair to keep me away from my religious needs or deprive me of another chance, no matter how short and boring, to hang out with Lisa. She pushed her glasses up the bridges of her nose. I was not aware you had any religious needs. I found Jesus while I was gone. Is not your mother an artist? She asked skeptically. And my dad is probably Muslim, but I have moved on to my own path. You should not keep me from it. She made a noise that sounded like a snicker. No, Miss Hathaway, I should not. Very well. You may attend service on Sundays. The victory was short lived, however, because church was every bit as lame as I remembered when I attended a few days later. I did get to sit next to Lisa, though, which made me feel like I was getting away with something. Mostly, I just people watched. Church was optional for students, but with so many Eastern European families, a lot of students were Eastern Orthodox Christians and attended either because they believed or because their parents made them. Christian sat on the opposite side of the aisle, pretending to be just as holy as he is. As much as I don't like him, his fake faith still made me smile. Drummer sat in the back, face lined with shadows, and like me, don't take any communion. As thought as he looked, I wondered if he ever listened to the service. I turned in and out. Following God's path is very easy, the priest was saying. Even Stein Waldemix, the school own Passion Saint, had a difficult time. He was so filled with the Spirit that people often flocked around him, enthralled just to listen and to be in his presence. So great was his Spirit, and old texture says that he could heal the sick. Yet, despite these gifts, many did not respect him. They mocked him, claiming he was misguided and confused, which was a way of saying Valdemar was incense. Everyone knew it. He was one of the handful of Morai saints, so the priests liked to talk about him a lot. I could have heard all about him many times over before we left. Great. It looked like I had an entity of Sundays to hear her stories over and over again. And so it was with shadow kissed Anna. I jerked my head up. I had no idea what the princess was talking about now because I had not been listening to for some time. But those words burned into me, shadow kissed. It had been a while since I heard them, but I have never forgotten them. I waited, hoping he could continue, but he already made to move on to the next part of the service. The sermon was over. Church concluded, and as Lisa turned to go, I shook my head at her. Wait for me, I'll be right there. I pushed my way through the crowd, up to the front, where the princess was speaking with a few people. I waited impatiently. While he finished, Natalie was there asking him about volunteer work she could go. Oh, when she finished, she left, greeting me as she passed. The princess raised his eyebrows when he saw me. Hello, Rose. It is nice to see you again. Yeah, you too. I said, I heard you talking about Anna, about how she was shadow kissed. What does that mean? He frowned. I'm not entirely sure. She lived a very long time ago. I was often common to refer to people with titles that reflected some of their traits. It might have been given to make her sound fiercer. I tried to hide my disappointment. Oh, so who was she? This time his frown was disapproving rather than thoughtful. I mentioned it a number of times. Oh, I must have missed it. His disapproval grew, and he turned around. Wait just a moment. He disappeared through the door near the altar, the one Lisa had taken to the attic. I considered fleeing out, though God might strike me down for that. Less than a minute later, the priest returned with a book. He handed it to me, Morai Saints. You can learn about her in here. The next time I see you, I could like to hear what you have learned. I scolded as I walked away. Great homework from the priest. In the chapel's entryway, I found Lisa talking to Oran. She smiled as she spoke, and the feeling coming of her was happy, though certainly not infatuated. You're kidding, she exclaimed. He shook his head. No. Seeing me stroll over, she turned to me. Rose, you're never going to believe this. You know Abby Bedica and Alexander, their guardians wants to resign and marry another guardian. Now, this was exciting gossip, a scandal actually. Seriously, are they going to run off together? She nodded. They are getting a house, going to get jobs with humans, I guess. I glanced at Oran, who had suddenly turned shy with me here. How are Abby and Alexander dealing with that? Okay, embarrassed. They think it is stupid. Then he realized who was speaking to. Oh, I don't mean whatever. I gave him a tight smile. It is stupid. Wow, I was stunned. The rebellious, the rebellious part of me loved any sort of stories where people fought the system. Only in this case, they were fighting my system, the one I could be trained to believe in my entire life. Dampiers and Morai had a strange arrangements. Dampiers had originally been born from Morai mixing with humans. Unfortunately, Dampiers could not reproduce with each other or with humans. It was a weird genetic thing. Mules were the same way. I could be told, thought that was not an comparison. I really like hearing Dampires and full Morai could have children together. And though another genetic oddity, their kids come out as a strong standard Dampires with half human genes, half vampire genes with Morai being the only ones with whom vampires could reproduce. We had to stay close to them and intermingle with them. Likewise, it became important to us that the Morai simply survived. Without them, we are done. And with the way Strigol loved picking off Morai, their survival became a legitimate concern for us. That was how the Guardian system developed. Dampiers could not work magic, but we made great warriors. We had inherited enhanced sense and reflex from our vampire genes and better strength and induced from our human genes. We also were not limited by any need of a blood or trouble with sunlight. Sure, we are not as powerful as Trigger, but we trained hard and Guardians did a kick-ass job at keeping Mora safe. Most Dampires felt it was worth risking their own lives to make sure our kind could still keep having children. Since Mora usually wanted to have and raise Mora children, you could not find a lot of long-term Morai Dampires romance. You especially don't find a lot of Morai women hooking up with Dampire guys, but plenty of young Morai men like fooling around with the Dampire romance. Although those guys usually went on to marry Morai women. That left a lot of single Dampire mothers, but we were tough and could handle it. However, many Dampier mothers choose not to become guardians in order to raise their children. These women sometimes worked regular jobs with Morai or humans. Some of them lived together in communities. These communities had a bad reputation. I don't know how much of it was true, but rumors that Morai men visited all the time for the sex, and that was some Dampier's women let them drink blood like while doing it. Blooders. Regardless, most of all guardians were men, which meant there were a lot more Morai than guardians. Most Dampier guys accepted that they could not have kids. They knew it was their job to protect Morai with their sisters and cousins have babies. Some Dampier's women, like my mother, still felt it was their duty to become guardians, even if it meant not raising their own kids. After I could be born, she handed me over to be raised by Mora. Mora and Dampier start school pretty young, and the academic has essentially taken over as my parent by the time I was 4. Between her example and my life at the academic, I believed wholeheartedly that it was a Dampier's jobs to protect Mora. It was part of our heritage, and it was the only way we could be keep going. It was that simple. And that was what made what the Badica's guardian had done so shocking. He could be abandoned his Morai and run off with another guardian, which meant she could abandon her Morai. They could they could not even have children together, and now two families were unprotected. What was the point? No one cared if teenage Dampiers dated or if adult Dampiers had flings, but a long term relationship, particularly one that involved with them running away, a complete waste and a disgrace. After a little more speculations on the barriers, Lisa and I left Oron. As we stepped outside, I heard a funny shifting sound and then something sliding. Too late, I realized what was happening. Just as a pile of slush slid off the chapel's roof onto us. It was early October and we had had yearly snow last night that had started melting almost immediately. As a result, the stuff that fell on us was very wet and very cold. Lisa took the burn of it, but it still heaved as the icy water landed on my hair and neck. A few other squeals nearby too, having caught the edge of the mini alpaca. "Oh, you okay?" I asked her. Her coat was drenched and her platinum hair clung to the sides of her face. Yeah, she said through the chattering teeth. I pulled off my coat and handed it to her. It had a stick silk surface that had repelled most of the water. "Take yours off." "But you will be. Take this." She did, and she slipped on my coat. I finally turned into the laughter that always follows these situations. I watered the eyes, instead focusing on holding Lisa's wet jacket while she changed. "Wish you have not been wearing a coat, Rose," said rough skirts and unusually bulky and plump Moroy. I hated him. That shirt could have looked good wet. That shirt, so ugly, it could be burned. "Did you get that from a homeless person?" I glanced up to Mia, walked over, and loomed her arm through Aaron's. Her blonde curls were arranged perfectly, and she had on an awesome pair of black heels that could have been looked much better on me. At least, they made her look taller. I could give her that. Aaron had been a few steps behind us but had miraculously avoided being nailed by the slush. Seeing how smug she looked, I decided there could be no miracles involved. "I suppose you want to offer to burn it, huh?" I asked, refusing to let her know how much that insult bugged me. I know perfectly well my fashion sense has slipped over the last 2 years. "Oh, wait, fire is not your element, is it? You work with water. What a coincidence that a bunch just fell on us." Mia looked as if she has been insulted, but the gleam in her eyes showed that she was enjoying this way too much to be an innocent bystander. What was it supposed to mean? Nothing to me, but Miss Kirova will probably have something to say when she finds out using magic against other students. That was not an attack," she scoffed. "And it was not me. It was an act of God." A few others laughed, much to her delight. In my imaginations, I responded with, "So is this that slammed into her the side of the church in real life?" Lisa simply nudged me and said, "Let's go." She and I walked off towards our respective dormrooms, leaving behind laughter and jokes about our wet states and how Lisa could not know anything about spectaculation inside. I see that. I had to do something about Mia, I realized. In addition to the general irritation of the Mia bitchiness, I don't want Lisa to have to deal with any more stress than she had to. We could be okay this first week, and I wanted to keep it that way. I said, "I am thinking more and more that you stealing Aran bag is a good thing. It will teach Bitch Doll a lesson. I bet it could be easy too. He is still crazy about you." "I don't want to teach anyone a lesson," said Lisa. "And I'm not crazy about him." "Come on, she picks fights and talks about us behind our backs. She accused me of getting jeans from Salvation Army yesterday." "Your jeans are from Salvation Army?" "Well, yeah," I snorted. "But she has no right making fun of them when she is wearing stuff from Target." "Hey, there is nothing wrong with the Target. I like Target." "So do I. That is not the point. She is trying to pass her stuff off like it is freaking Stella McCartney, and that is a crime?" Affected a Solomon face. "Absolutely, you have got to take revenge." "I told you I am not interested in revenge." Lisa cut me a sidelong look. "And you should not be either." I smiled as innocent as I could, and when we parted ways, I felt relieved again that she could not read my thoughts. "So, when is the big cat fight going to happen?" Manson was waiting for me outside our dorm after I parted ways with Lisa. He looked lazy and cute, leaning against the wall with crossed arms as he watched me. "I'm sure I don't know what you mean." He unfolded himself and walked with me into the building, handing me his coat, since I could let Lisa go off with my dry one. I saw you guys sparring outside the chapel. Have you no respect for the house of God? I snorted. You have got about such respect for it as I do. You heathen, you don't even go. Besides, as you said, we were outside. And you still don't answer the question. I just grinned and slipped on his coat. We stood in the common area of our dorm room as a well supervised longue and study area where male and female students could mingle along with more guests. Being Sunday, it was pretty crowded with some cramming of last minute assignments due boring. Spying a small empty table, I grabbed Manson's arm and pulled him towards it. Aren't you supposed to go straight to your room? I hung down in my seat, glancing around wearily. There are so many people here today, I will take them a while to notice me. God, I'm so sick of being locked away, and it has only been we. I'm sick of it too. We missed you last night. A bunch of us was went and shoot pool in the rec room. Eddie was on fire. I groaned. Don't tell me that. I don't want to hear about your glamorous social life. Alright, he propped his elbow up on the table and rested his chin on his hands. Then tell me about Mia. You're just going to turn around and punch her one day, or not you? I think I remember you doing that at least 10 times with people that pissed you off. I'm a new reformed Rose, I said, doing my best impression of Damer, which was not very good. He emitted a choking sort of laugh. Besides, if I do that, I have been broken my probation with Kurova. Gotta walk the straight and narrow. In other words, find some other way to get back to Mia that you won't get in trouble for. I felt a smile tug at the corner of my lips. You know what I like about your mess? You think just like I do. Frightening concept, he said dryly. So tell me what you think of this. I might know something about her, but I probably should not tell you. I leaned forward. Oh, you really tipped me off. You have got to tell me now. It could be wrong, he teased. How do I know you could use the knowledge for good instead of evil? I batted my eyelash. You can resist this face? He took a moment to study me. No, I cannot actually. Okay, here you go. Mia is not royal. I scolded back in my chair. No kidding, I already know that. I have know who is royal since I was two. Yeah, but there is more than just that. Her parents work for one of the Dozova slots. I waved my hand impatiently. A lot of Morais worked out in the human world, but Morai society had plenty of jobs of its own kind too. Someone had to fill them. Cleaning stuff, practically servants. Her dad cut grasses, and her mom's a maid. I actually had a healthy respect for anyone who pulled a full day work, regardless of the job. People everywhere had to do crappy stuff to make a living. But much like with Target, it became another matter altogether when someone was trying to pass herself off on something else. And in the week that I had been here, I picked up on how desperately Mia wanted to fit in with the school elites. No one knows, I said thoughtfully. And she does not want them to. You know how the royal works. He passed. Well, except for Lisa, of course. They could give Mia a hard time over it. How do you know all this? My uncle is the guardian for the Robos. And you're just been setting on this secret? Huh? Until you broke me. So which path will you choose? Good or evil? I think I will give her a grace. Miss Hathaway, you know you are not supposed to be here. One of the doorroom matrons stood over us, disapproval all over her face. I had not been joking when I said Manson thought like me. He could bullshit as well as I thought. We have a we have a group project to do for our humanities classes. How are we supposed to do if Rose is in isolation? The matron narrowed her eyes. You don't look like you're doing work. I slid over the precise book and opened it at a random. I had placed it on the table when we sat down. We are working on this? She still looked suspicious. 1 hour, and I will give you one more hour down here, and I could better actually see you working. Yes, madam, said Manson. Straight faced, absolutely. She wandered off, still eyeing us. My hero, I declared. He pointed at the book. What is this? Something the princess gave me. I had a question about the service. He started at me, astonished. Oh, stop it! And look interested. Ask him the index. I'm trying to find some woman named Anna. Manson slid his chair over so that he was sitting right beside me. All right, let's study. I found a page number and it took me to the section on the Saint Valdemix. Not surprisingly. We read through the chapter scanning for Anna's name. When we found it, the author don't have much to say about her. He did included an excerpt written by some guy who had apparently lived at the same time as Strain Valdemar. And with Valdemar always with Anna, the daughter of Florid, their lover is a chaste and pure as that of a brother and sister, and many times had she defended him from Strigoi, who could seek to destroy him and his whole holiness. Likewise, it is she who comforts him with the spirit becomes too much to bear, and Satan's darkness tries to smoother him and weaken his own health and body. This too she defended against, for they had been bound together ever since he saved her life as a child. It is a sign of God's love that he has sent the blessed Valdemix a guardian such as her, one who is shadow kissed and always know what is in his heart and mind. There you go, Manson said. She was his guardian. It does not say what shadow kissed means. Probably does not know anything. Something in me don't believe it. I read it again, trying to make sense of the old fashioned language. Manson watched me curiously, looking like he very much wanted to help. Maybe they were hooking up, he suggested. I laughed. He was a saint. So, saints probably like sex too. Their brothers and sisters stuff is probably a cover. He pointed to one of the lines. See, they were bound together. He winked. It's a code. Bound. It is a weird word choice, but that don't necessarily mean Anna and Valdemar were ripping each other's clothes off. I don't think so. They are just close. Guys and girls can be just be friends, I said it pointedly. And he gave me a wry look. Yeah, we are friends, and I don't know what is your heart and mind. Manson put a fake philosophical look. Of course, some might argue that one can never know what is in the heart of a woman. Oh, shut up, I groaned, punching him in the arm, for they are strange and mysterious creatures, he continued in a scholarly voice, and a man must be a mind reader if he ever wished to make them happy. I started giggling uncontrollably and no, I could probably get in trouble again. Well, try to read my mind and stop being such a. I stopped laughing and looked back down at the book. Bound together and always know what is in his heart and mind. They had a bond, I realized. I could have never bet anything I owned, which was not much on it. The revelation was astonishing. There were lots of vague stories and myths about how guardians and morai used to have bounds, but this was the first I could ever heard of anyone specific that it had happened to. Manson had noticed my startled reaction. You okay? You look kind of weird. I just, yeah, fine.